So one of my viewers asked me if I would watch this video and told me I would find it interesting. It's about hockey and it's called When a Hockey Game Sparked a Riot. And as we can see here, I believe it's between Vancouver Canucks and the Boston Bruins. So yeah, I know how important hockey is to Canada. And yeah, interested to know how a hockey game sparked a riot. Like, tell me if you remember this, tell me what you know about it. Let's learn about it. And enjoy.
A wild night turned into a very dangerous situation in that city, and our Josh Elliott has been tracking all of this. Overnight nasty.
Yeah, as we can see, I mean, it was a terrifying scene there in Vancouver. Angry fans obviously pouring out into the streets. Emotion heightened.
All of this should have never have happened. But when you get two franchises starving for a championship and a whole lot of bad blood and mind games, the emotions reach a new level that we see very rarely in sports. And when two teams hate each other as much as these guys do, and emotions get out of hand on the ice, sometimes it becomes a lot bigger than just a game.
So tell me about that. Is there some sort of rivalry between these teams? Why would they hate each other so much? Boston and Vancouver seem quite far away from each other. Are they just like had a lot of big matches in hockey history? I guess we might find out as well, but tell me what you know about that.
In 2011, there was one team who utterly dominated the NHL. That team was the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks finished with the best regular season record and the President's Trophy. Their skillful play, led by Daniel and Henrik Sedin, allowed them to become the top dog in the league. On the other side of the league, in the Eastern Conference, is the Boston Bruins. The Bruins were a solid physical team who got in your face to have success. Now, to get to this moment in a do-or-die Game 7, these two teams had to deal with an overwhelming amount of adversity. The Canucks faced the ultimate mental hurdle in the first round against the defending Cup champs, who were the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks knocked out the Canucks the previous season, so there was already a lot of bad blood between these two teams. The Canucks took the first 3 games and then proceeded to lose the next 3, so the series went 7. With all the pressure in the world on the President Trophy Canucks, an epic collapse like this in the first round would likely be catastrophic for the organization and ultimately would lead to a complete overhaul. It would come all the way down to a Game 7 overtime to push this Canucks team over the hurdle. After that, they got by Nashville in 6 and San Jose in 5 to advance to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Did something like that not just happen in the last Stanley Cup? I think was it Florida versus Edmonton Oilers, and the Oilers were down 3-0, then they came back to 3 each, but then I think Florida won the last one, something like that. I was keeping an eye on it to see how Edmonton were doing, see if they could win it with Connor McDavid, but yeah, tell me what you think about that last series as well.
Now, what's important to note is that in that San Jose series, Vancouver's man advantage went 9 for 24 in the entire series. That's a sizzling 37.5%. San Jose wanted to get physical with the Canucks, but their mentality, according to defenseman Kevin Bieksa, which was basically let the Sharks push them around if they wanted to. The Canucks were confident that they had one of the best power plays in the world that year, and if you wanted to take stupid penalties, they were going to bury you. And that was exactly what they did in that series. On the other side is the Boston Bruins, who went 7 games with the Canadiens, swept the Flyers, and then won again in 7 games against Tampa. The hero in both rounds 1 and 3 for Boston was none other than winger Nathan Horton, a hulking power forward who had a knack for the big moments in this playoff run by scoring the Game 7 OT winner in round 1 and the series clincher in another Game 7 of round 3. That leads us to this series here, the Stanley Cup Finals between the Vancouver Canucks and the Boston Bruins. Game 1, Rogers Arena is in Vancouver, and this game couldn't get any closer. Big saves on both ends, tons of physicality with both teams trying to set the tone, and in doing so, key defenseman for the Vancouver Canucks and Dan Hamhuis tries to throw a huge hip check on Milan Lucic, and as a result, he just ends up crumpling. When Hamhuis laid that hit, he would tear his groin right off
Tore
the
his
bone,
own groin?
and that means he was
Jesus.
completely done for the series.
How?
A huge blow to the blue line for the Canucks, but the bigger storyline was Alex Burrows apparently biting the finger of Patrice Bergeron in a scrum. The cameras caught the interaction between the two, but it was unclear to the NHL whether or not Burrows actually did.
Tell me what you
bite
think
his
about
finger.
that. Definitely
However,
bit him
many
there,
fans
I
found
think.
it hard to believe that a player like Patrice Bergeron would have lied about something like that. Either way, Burrows didn't receive any discipline, and he was cleared to play in Game 2.
Yeah, tell me what you think about that. It looked like he bit him. Did you think it was not meant or something like that? And what was it about his personality that would make people not think he would lie? Was he just a very honest player? Something like that. But I mean, you see it already, the action there. The hockey goes hard, man. Some of those like challenges, the way they're fighting and all that is like pretty mad. It's cool.
Raffi Torres of the Canucks would be the only guy to find the back of the net in this game, and the Canucks took a tight Game 1 on home ice. The mind games and hate had officially been ignited. Then the presence of Alex Burrows was felt big time in Game 2, as this one included more scoring but was once again another tightly contested bout. Burrows would score the first goal of the game, and after both teams went back and forth to get all squared up at 2, this game would require OT. As soon as the puck drops, Daniel Sedin makes a heads-up play to Burrows to spring him on a quick rush. Burrows fakes the slap shot, gets Thomas out of the blue paint, and then tucks a wraparound to end the game.
Whoa,
a player who was arguably
nice.
not even supposed to be in this game 2
That was such a
ends
good
up being
move.
an integral part to the result. The Canucks were now
Like
up
the little fake
2-0,
one,
but
man.
both games were extremely tight and honestly could have went either way. This set up a crucial Game 3. If the Canucks went up 3-0, this series was likely to be curtains. But if the Bruins found a way to win, it changes everything. Early on, the Bruins looked to target Burrows, especially for his antics against Bergeron. A couple of solid hits and some trash talking raised the intensity of this game, but with only just a few minutes being burned in the first period, an innocent-looking rush would change the entire series.
Oh, damn.
Outlet pass is on now for the control of Horton.
Oh.
Back up to Lucic and his shot. It's blocked aside and down on the ice now. It's Horton.
Could have broke that guy's neck there, man. What is that considered, like a bad challenge? What do people think about when they see something like that?
After
It's
being
like-
a critical part of their run to get
Oh,
to this
whiplash.
point, Nathan Horton would dish the puck to the wing and watch his pass as he enters the zone.
Yeah, man, he's
Almost
not
a
even
full
looking.
second after the puck is gone, defender Aaron Rome on the Canucks steps up and levels Horton with a high and late hit. The aftermath was hard to
Frightening.
watch.
Well, he's in
Conscious, but no one was home.
That
Horton had to be
position, man.
stretchered off the ice, and this hit completely changed the dynamic of the series. The Bruins rallied to score 8 goals, all against Vancouver's star goalie in Roberto Luongo. The Canucks poked the bear, and the bear woke up
Man,
pissed
fight
off.
back there.
Even winger Jeff Tambellini of the Vancouver Canucks felt that he'd never seen anything change so drastically in a series after that hit.
They were
Aaron
ready
Rome
for
was
war.
suspended for the remainder of the series, and the Canucks were starting to do too much to try and make up for missing players. The Bruins steamrolled the Canucks 4-0 in Game 4, and the series shifted back to Vancouver, where once again, it was another extremely tight contest. Maxime Lapierre scored the only goal at 4:35 of the third when the puck bounced off the wall and caught Tim Thomas by surprise. After the Canucks won 1-0 and Luongo was named the first star of the game, he said this about Tim Thomas when asked about the lone goal in the game.
Comes from a weird angle, goes off Tim's body. Just how hard that is for
It's not hard if you're playing in the paint, so it's an easy save for me, but if you're wandering out and aggressive like he does, I mean, that's going to happen. So he might make some saves that I won't, but in cases like that, I mean, we want to take advantage of bounces like that and make sure that we're in good position to bury those.
Tell me like how the atmosphere is that at these games, like there when you seen the goal or the point being scored, looked like the crowd were going wild, man. Tell me if you were there. Tell me what you think about the atmosphere at hockey matches. And yeah, watching this already makes me actually want to watch this full series. Like so much action, some good points being scored. It looks pretty cool, pretty
Pouring
great
more
actually.
gasoline onto the fire between these two teams, but it seemed like the Canucks were getting sucked into the noise. As Luongo admitted afterwards, he wished that he wasn't as worried about what was going on the outside. With the Canucks now just being one win away from the Stanley Cup, everything started to fall apart. Players and members of the organization were starting to get ahead of themselves, and proceeded to lose focus. But more importantly than that, the Bruins started to physically overwhelm the Canucks. Defenseman Kevin Bieksa said that it seemed like the Bruins defensemen had a mandate to make life hell on Vancouver's forwards. Whether it was a slash, cross-check, constant scrums, Bieksa admitted that they just didn't have the team to match up with that kind of physicality. The Bruins won Game 6 easily 5-2. And in the final minute of the game, Marchand proceeded to punch Sedin in the face multiple times with no retaliation. That was a bad look for a team that was already called soft and whose toughness was in question in this series. Even though the Canucks said they wanted to take punches to draw power plays, the power plays just didn't come, and the result was almost symbolic of what was happening. I mean, just look at this. Marchand and the Bruins are sending a message for Game 7, and no one is fighting back on the Canucks. That brings us to this moment here, the do-or-die Game 7 in Vancouver. With all the pressure in the world on the Canucks to close out this magical season on home ice, the first goal of this game means everything to both teams. The Canucks came out with energy and had multiple grade A chances, including this one by Daniel Sedin, but Tim Thomas remained the difference in this series. Multiple big-time saves early on gave the Bruins a chance to strike. A young Brad Marchand would throw a backhander into the slot, and Bergeron would bang at it through some legs to catch Luongo off guard and make it a 1-0 game. Finish. With every second that Vancouver spent chasing the game, the pressure only got more intense. It seemed like every time the Canucks came close to breaking through, Tim Thomas and the Bruins would find a way to come out unharmed. A Marchand wraparound goal followed by a Bergeron shorthanded tally in the second meant that the Canucks were slowly watching their dream slip from their hands. As the seconds ticked down, the Canucks and their fans would experience heartbreak while the Bruins celebrated in total elation. This series here would go down in history as one of the greatest battles the NHL has ever seen.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
With all the hate, drama, and intensity this series was filled with, it would be one that fans would remember for a long time. Unfortunately, the most memorable part didn't even happen on the ice. After Game 7 ended, the city of Vancouver went berserk. It wasn't reflective of the Canuck fan base, but rather what can happen when a mob mentality reaches to a whole other level. A magical season for the Canucks ended in the most bitter way possible. This series showed just how much every inch matters in this sport, both physically and mentally. At any given moment, something can happen, and it can alter the entire psyche of your team. Give a guy 1 inch, and they will take a mile. The Canucks were the more talented team, but the Bruins and their physicality grinded them down until they had nothing left. One bounce here, one different choice there, and the outcome of this series could have been entirely different. To this day, the bad blood and mind games between the players involved in this series still live on. And although this hockey game would result into something everyone would like to forget, it was really symbolic of the series. For a series that had every element of the game that you both love and hate to see, how it ended is reflective of how the series went as a whole. And that was pure chaos.
Great documentary there. Like, tell me what you think about that. Go subscribe to that channel, Hockey Psychology. Very well produced. Again, like, I get as much as it's talking about some of the negatives, like that bad tackle, the riot, actually makes me want to watch that match. It looks like fascinating, so much action going on. I was going to ask, like, as he kind of mentioned, how does that rate in the greatest series of all time? Is it one of the best? What is the best Stanley Cup series of all time? And like in a moment like that, when it's like a Canadian team versus an American team, do fans of other Canadian teams like support the Canadian team, or would they rather they got beat? What if you support like another team? What were you thinking? Like another Canadian team, like the Oilers or whatever, Maple Leafs. Would you have been supporting Vancouver in this match, or who would you have wanted to win? What did you think about this match when it was going on? Were you watching every match and like just seeing this action? What did you think? And yeah, those riots is like something that doesn't really get spoken about too much, like in the UK and things. But like I always see, like in North American sports, whether it's Canada, America, sometimes if there's like a big win in a series or a big loss, you always see these cars on fire and stuff. Why is that a thing? Like, it's just something that we don't really do that in the UK, but We do a lot of bad things when it comes to football, soccer, like hooligans and fighting, but just never set a car on fire for some reason. But it's just something you see in North America that's quite unique. Tell me what you think about this one. Thanks.